Hello, I'm Aaron Day from Make Crazy Days. This is another video in the Spalted Maple Firewood series. I'm going to make a clock with a walnut ring and some spalted maple veneer for the clock face. If you'd like to see how, keep watching. The walnut board was cut to size and square on the table saw, then I found the center by crossing lines from the corners. I used a skill saw blade to make a rough circle to cut at the bandsaw. I stayed well away from the line since I wanted the clock face to be as large as possible. Using the crossed lines, I centered the faceplate with the screw holes centered on the line. Then a pencil was used to mark the location of the screw holes. And a hole was punched to help center the drill bit. Then holes were drilled all the way through. And screws were sunk to secure it to the faceplate. The faceplate was threaded onto the lathe with the workpiece. The outer edge of the workpiece was brought round. Next, the face was cleaned up by pulling the square carbide tip from the center to the outside. The faceplate and the workpiece were removed from the lathe to flip and work on the reverse side. Screws were removed, the wood was flipped and secured again with the screws using the same holes. Then back onto the lathe. The same technique was used to clean up the face by drawing the tool from the center to the outside. This is going to be the reverse side of the clock, and a rabbet is necessary for the clock face to rest in. I've marked the outer width of the rabbet. Using a parting tool, I start to plunge into the wood. I switch to a carbide tip tool to hog away more material quickly. I wanted about a 1/4 inch recess to the clock face, so I needed to check my depth against the thickness of the wood while cutting. Once I was deep enough, I cleaned up the rough edges of the clock ring. And then I switched to the outer edge of the clock. Time to switch from the faceplate to the new set of coal jaws. The workpiece was unscrewed from the faceplate again. Then it was set in the coal jaws and tightened in. And the chuck was threaded onto the lathe. This time I marked how deep I went with the inside radius of the rabbet on the reverse side. The parting tool was used to free the inside to make it a ring finally. The center of the disc was popped out, and I could start cleaning up the inside of the ring. I started cutting to a new line which marked where it would leave about 3/4 of an inch of the rabbet. Using a new Versa chisel my wife picked up, I tuned the inner edge of the ring. I then popped the ring out of the coal jaws and moved the holders in 1 notch. The holders were shorter than the depth of the rabbet, which worked out nicely. This allowed me to expand the coal jaws to hold the ring and work on the outside. I sanded through the grits up to 600, but I didn't put on any finish yet. And now the spalted firewood makes its appearance. I ripped this piece down, making about 3/16 of an inch veneers, so there may be more projects using these. I wanted these to be book matched, so I used 2 slices which were right next to each other. 2 pieces of carpet tape were used to hold each one down. They were taped down right next to each other on a flat surface. I used a hand plane to smooth out this face. You might notice these do not book match, they're the reverse side. Working with thin wood like veneer and carpet tape, work slowly. Gently pry up, allowing the wood to free itself from the tape. The veneers were flipped and tape was applied to the back sides. I used the same process on this side to get an even thickness of the veneer. I would not recommend this with a sander, especially with spalted wood, but I suppose a drum sander might be a good option. This time around I had to be even more careful. The veneer was probably less than 1/8 of an inch thick. I folded the two pieces together and taped them. This will hold them together so I can cut a straight edge. The edge was aligned with the laser on the saw, and then I cut the edge. I peeled back the tape, and now we see why it's called book match. I'm using some thin plywood as a stable substrate for the veneer. Glue is spread evenly across the plywood. Then I laid out the veneer pair on the plywood, gently pressing the mating edge together. I'm using HDPE cutting boards as cawls for the clamps. The glue will not stick to these. I gently tightened down the C-clamps and then snugged the veneers together before a final tightening. And why not add a little more weight? I mean, real weight. The walnut ring is laid out on the veneer and plywood. Then I trace around the inside of the ring. I make sure the center line is through the center of the ring. Over at the bandsaw, I cut out the circle. This time, I'm very careful to just barely remove the pencil line. Insert quick representative clip of sanding. A hole is drilled for the clockworks of the drill press. Glue is dabbed at the edges of the ring to hold the face in, but not get any visible squeeze out. Using cawls on the front face of the ring, I clamp in the clock face. I dribble some boiled linseed oil on a cloth and make a Rorschach test. Apply it to the clock. And there we have it, another use for spalted firewood. Share with your friends if you enjoyed, comment if you have questions, and God bless.